Okay, are you just?
Yes, I am.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Mundelein Elementary School District 75 board meeting for Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. It is 7:02 PM. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Holly,
Here.
Rose is not here. Carl? Here. Hitzke? Not here. Gallegos?
Here.
Fingerhut here. Village here.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. We have some people missing tonight. Is there anyone online?
Just one person.
Okay, if that one person that's online, if you would like to ask the board to give comments to the board, please click the raise hand icon on the bottom of the screen. Okay, and there is no one present, so we will continue on with our agenda. First item up is the Board of Education comments. Anyone have anything?
Just a, I guess, an announcement to make sure that everybody's aware that Rockfest is coming up on September 9th. And so we should all try to attend and encourage any of our neighbors and family and friends to attend as well.
We usually work the breakfast, so we should be getting a email from our pilot about the kinds of jobs that we can volunteer for. We usually cook, but we also serve and collect money and things like that in the cafeteria, so that'll be coming.
Should be in this Friday update.
Excellent. I guess I'm gonna look to you, any, what's the beginning of school for your,
I will just say yes. I mean, at least we're all back to school now and adjusting to all that goes along with that. Adjusting to busing schedules and how that works in my family as well as everybody else. And it's a work in progress, as it always is. So it's good.
I had an interesting experience. I left home a little after 8 on the first day of school. Actually, the first day of kindergarten. And I passed like several sets of parents like walking back to their house. And first when I saw them, I was like, it's like 10 after 8, like school doesn't start in Washington. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, school does already start in Washington. So they had, walked from the neighborhood and dropped their kids off and we're walking home. So I didn't even remember we changed everything around.
Well, and in our house, we had a flip because now we have an MG student who gets on the bus early. At the time, we used to be leaving the house to go drop off the middle school and high schooler. And now I put him on the bus and then come home and go get them. In reverse, but we're adjusting.
Okay, all right, next up is district, I can't talk tonight, I apologize. District 75 reports, and first up is maintenance facilities. I would like to welcome Dave Zaremba to the lectern, please.
Thank you, Mr. Holly, and welcome aboard. I am here to talk about facilities and maintenance updates. Next slide, please. First, we're going to talk about our agenda. The agenda, we're going to talk about the Lincoln Wall, the repair that was done at the Lincoln Wall. Second, we're going to talk about the East District office construction. Third, the boiler automation completed at Carl Sandburg and Lincoln, and the solar project completed and commissioned at 3 of our buildings. We're also then going to talk about the 2022 project updates. I will give updates on all 4 of our buildings. Next slide, please. So the first slide we're looking at is the Lincoln repair. Back in May, we had a gentleman have a medical condition, crashed into our building. As you can see on the left side, he pushed the wall in about 16 inches. Cracked the building all the way up to the windows. We've had that repaired. It's all been cleaned now. You guys have just got my picture afterwards, but it's all been cleaned. Windows been repaired. This has been getting paid for through the gentleman's insurance. I'm working with Joanne Logan. We went through our insurance and she's working through them through his insurance because he was in the hospital for a while and we had to submit it somewhere. Next slide, please.
Dave, just to confirm with that, we had a structural engineer come in, saw all the repairs, building safe and sound.
Yes, I apologize. Yes. Next slide, please. Next is the East District office construction. We have built 10 new offices, as you can see when you come in. We also built 2 giant conference rooms. We're waiting on the furniture for that. A couple of weeks out, it'll be ready. We'll be using those also. Teaching and learning is starting to get into their rooms. We are starting to rotate everybody else into their back offices. Within the next couple of weeks, everything should be finished up. Back up one, please. Boiler automation is now completed. The boilers have been running, pumps have been running for a while. We have not been able to see them on our computers. All winter long, my team has to come in every morning and check to make sure we've had heat at Lincoln. We can now see it on the computers. We cannot see the classrooms yet, but I can see the heat is working in the buildings. Part of next year's summer project, we will be automating the classrooms too, so we will be able to see all of our buildings complete. The solar project is completed and commissioned. All the testing has been done. We are now running at, it's all been tested and it's generating power. Currently collecting solar power at Lincoln, Washington, and Carl Sandburg. About a year, I'll give us an update. It's going to be a little hard for an update because COVID has a lot of things thrown off with electrical use, but I'll try to give us an update of how we are saving if we're fulfilling the contract they gave us. Next screen, please. Lincoln Early School, Early Childhood Center. We replaced all of the sump pit, as you can see in the left screen. They were rotten, they were deteriorating. We had them all ripped out. We had them all rebuilt. We put new pumps in, have them all sealed, and changed all the piping up into the foundation. The picture on the right is we ordered some new lockers for the upstairs hallway. Kids were walking all the way down to the end of the hallway to hang their coats. We're trying to eliminate that. We ordered all new out there just because of manufacturing back orders. We're on back order. They should be in mid-September. Next screen, please. Washington Early Learning Center. This is our Washington Library. We added a lift. We pulled out where the lift was. There used to be a ramp that went to that far wall. You can see it in through here. It used to be here. It gave us 80 square feet. So it allowed us to bring all of the book drops and everything to the front. We added a lift, an ADA lift, to get in and out for people who need it. Added 80 square feet to the library, removed the handicap ramp, put in the elevator, and you can see what it's done. Last year, we bought all new bookcases, all new tables, all new chairs. So the library is now fully up to date with newer equipment in it. Next screen, please.
Dave, that
Yeah.
extra space, the plan is to use it for more maker space.
More maker space. We've got a Lego robotics wall that we are going to be putting up, adding to this area here so the kids can come and play with their Legos. But there is more maker space there. We added 5 tables for more places to sit besides the tables and the bookcases that are on the other end that we did last year.
And a lot of those bookcases were on wheels, so they can be moved around. As
Yes,
needed
all
to-
of the
to
new ones we put
accommodate,
on wheels, so it was easier for if we have meetings or something like that, and it's easier to move.
Which is really nice.
Yes. Next screen, please.
The
Yes,
highlight of the lift
yes.
is that the student hits the button and stops. So,
Okay,
which is great for
It
fostering independence.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then also all the bookcases in there are going to be like the right height for a student to be able to reach. We have a student that will need that in a year, so both the button the student can be independent as well as. the bookcases.
Getting their own
That's
books.
exciting.
Thank you.
for-
Yeah, thank you. It looks beautiful.
Thank you. Washington Early Learning Center. The picture on the left used to be the old reading room. We had 5 reading teachers in there. We moved Stephanie. We moved the administrators up into their office and also added a conference room that will fit either all administrators or all teachers. They could be in all one place at one time for a conference. The picture on the right just shows the flooring that goes through the offices, through the new conference room, and then down through the stairs. Next slide, please. We're still at Washington. We added new lighting to the Washington playground, which you see here on the right. We added 3 lamps. We put them on a timer so it doesn't disrupt the neighbors. After 10 o'clock, they click off. We can turn them on manual if we have an event that comes on a little bit later through the evening. We also added a hard rubber surface to the playgrounds like we did at Lincoln last year. This one was all paid for by the 50/50 grant. I don't know, the Safety First grant. It's all hard rubber through the playground, through the swings, through the Weasel area and the jungle gyms. Everything is ADA compliant. We put ADA ramps in here, ADA ramps in here, so it can be used by everybody. Next slide, please. Mechanics Grove. As we asked 2 months back for some money for new mobile units. The mobile units are in. It's the picture on your top left. With that picture, you see the new foundation for the hallway that we have put in, and we also added a sewer here to collect any of the water from here from not going into the trailers. This is the hallway sided, doors, windows put in. This is how we split the hallway. Instead of it running this way, we have them running 2 classrooms side by side. This is the hallway went through. This has all been painted now. That is what the 2 classrooms look like carpeted. Next slide, please. Mechanics Grove again, front office renovation. We knocked out a wall here at Mechanics Grove. Multiple reasons for it. One, it brought all the secretaries to the front window. They could now see buses pull up, parents walking up, things like that. Part 2 of that is we used to have all of the copiers in there and the mailboxes in there. It just caused a lot of confusion and a lot of noise in the front office every morning. We moved the copy room, as you can see, to a better location in the middle of the building. Moved their mailboxes, which are sitting over here, so everyone's not congregating in the front office anymore. Also, we expanded the nurse's office. Nurse's office used to be right next to this front office. Again, a lot of people in there trying to get so much noise out of the front office. It also gave her, instead of 2 little rooms, 1 big room for the new nurse's office. Next slide, please.
It's not clear from that picture, but I've been there. The nurse's office is directly across from the main
Hallway office now.
office now. So
Yeah.
it's still right there. It's still centrally located, but it's on the interior of the building rather than being part of
Yes, thank you for your input. Mechanics Grove still. We repaired all the existing curbs. We had a lot of bad curbs throughout Mechanics Grove. Purpose for fixing the curbs is so the water flow runs into the drains. We're not getting the erosion from the dirt coming down, also keeping the dirt where the dirt's supposed to be and the water where the water's supposed to be. We added 3 parking lot lights through the bus lane. This is a picture of what it looks like at night now. Really lights up the front of the building.
It really does.
And also Washington looks the exact same way. I didn't get a nighttime picture of Washington. I apologize for that. But this is what both buildings will look like now. We did that for security. We did it for safety. We did it for nighttime events where it's always been dark. Next slide, please. We're now at Carl Sandburg. All the 6th grade hallways, 6 bathrooms. We replaced all the partitions with new plastic partitions instead of the steel ones that were in there. They were starting to decay, rot away. We added all new lighting and all new mirrors in all the bathrooms in the 6th grade hallway. So we have 1 more hallway district wide, and then all of the bathrooms will have new partitions in them. Next year, we will do the 7th grade hallway. We are, I've been working with Jamie DiCarlo, and I've been working with Mrs. Hupp from the high school to add a sensory room to Carl Sandburg. It's going into a side room that is off the library, right by the 2 main sensory rooms in the school. We are waiting for that equipment. We were waiting for a grant to go through. Jamie's got that through. They've ordered the equipment. We're waiting for it now. As soon as it's done, I'll give you a better update on that. And all new kitchen serving equipment. We're waiting for that for delivery. It's been ordered. That money came from the extra money from the lunches that we sell. We accumulated enough money where we could come up with $100,000 to put all new equipment in, serving equipment, double-sided. We'll be able to use it, roll it outside for Bratfest. We got wheels on it. We made them hot and cold, so we could have cold stuff and hot stuff. We have 3 new carts coming, a new cooler coming, and sandwich serving trays for the kitchen. Next slide, please. Oh, I guess I'm done. Do we have any questions?
Can you tell us what are the 2 mobile units at MG being used for? Because I know there was different ideas and I forgot to look at the map that I haven't.
Right now, it's going to be the music room. And it's going to be a teacher, teacher space, teacher office space. It's gonna be 5 cubicles in there. Plus robotics is going to be in there. So there will be 5 on one side, and then robotics will have the other side. And then we'll have the second classroom will be a music room.
Is it for bands? Because the music room is a
Yes,
classroom.
band.
Okay, band. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
What if we have comments?
If we what?
We have comments.
Any questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I am friends, just because of the business I'm in, with David Brian Stewart, who is the director of Improv Playhouse, which is in Libertyville.
Yes.
And just randomly, a week or 2 ago, I got a message from him. And he said, "Hi, Kevin, we just wrapped an incredible production of Aida at Lincoln School with our teens. Just want to say how much I appreciate the collaboration with District 75. They've been very gracious and accommodating. And so I said, oh, this is fantastic. Is there someone in particular that you work with that I can compliment? And I shared this with Dave privately before, but I just want everyone to hear this. David responded, Dave is always terrific, great collaborator. So
Thank
I
you.
just want to say thank you for not only, helping our staff and students, but also people that are coming in and using our spaces, renting our spaces.
My pleasure.
I appreciate that you're collaborating with those people too.
Yes,
I don't know how you have time for all this, but so
make it happen.
kudos to you. He's a really great guy and I'm really glad to hear that.
Well, on a
I'm
side
so
note, I
happy.
am working with 2 other production companies who want to eventually rent Lincoln. I'm trying to get some more revenue with the money that we've invested in there in the last few years, to use that space some more. So, but thank you.
I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Any other questions? Sorry,
Or comments?
More comments.
or comments?
Everything looks really great.
Thank
I
you.
know you guys did a lot of work over the summer. It looks great.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
A little update on the trailers. Within 2 weeks, we should be ready and moved in. We'll be done this week with the construction. I'm waiting for the occupancy permit and then we should be able to move in.
I guess I thought of one more
Yes, ma'am.
question, kind of, but so this means based on, since the nurse has a new space. And we moved all the others out, so we've given the teachers back their lounge, right?
Teachers have their lounge back in the old nurse's office, turned in some one-on-one reading rooms.
Good.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Next up is human resources. I would like to invite Shane to the lectern.
Good evening, everybody. So there are 2 roles, support roles in the D75 business office. One is the accounts payable, and that is Joanne Logan in that role. And then the other is the bookkeeper. Lisa Katzenberger was in that role. Lisa Katzenberger has recently agreed to take a shared service position as the grant and Medicaid coordinator under student services under Jamie, which created an opportunity for us to kind of review how the duties that those 2 employees conducted, should they be realigned? Should we keep the roles separated? And so what I have before you tonight for your review and possible approval is a business office clerk job description. What we've done is we've taken the outline of the bookkeeper responsibilities and then added the responsibilities that were appropriate to add because there are certain auditing and financial things that you can't be on both sides of the transaction. I'm not exactly sure what all those details are. T and Andy Searle have helped, guide that, but to make sure that this employee is operating within their sense of control and other employees are doing their part. But this job description is essentially a blend of those bookkeeper roles and the accounts payable roles that would be a natural fit for one employee to encompass.
So we did get feedback from all the parties to see how that job description would fit. Do you believe it is
Yes.
viable?
Yeah,
That's the separation of the duties that you described earlier.
we did. We interviewed Tina, met with Lisa Katzenberger, and Andy Searle met with Lisa Katzenberger to go through everything that Lisa did. The job description hadn't been updated for a while, so there were going to be some new items added. And then Joanne Logan and Joanne provided me with the roster of all of her responsibilities and then met with Andy and Tina again to go over that. And then we were able to figure out what aligned so that it's a full-time position, but that it's an appropriate full-time work to make sure that we weren't just dumping a whole bunch of things on one employee. So as we get this position then established, we'll be able to look at other pieces to see if they need to go to another employee. I'll probably be back at future board meetings with other updates.
And did you say that we also filled the Medicaid and the grant writer
We did,
position?
yes.
So I'm just clarification, are we gonna hire this or is this gonna be Joanne's position?
Well, we feel good that this is something that Joanne would want. That's why we sought her input and feedback. We didn't want to create a position that, she would be unqualified for, knowing that she was doing some of these duties already. They just weren't listed on the job description. So this is the first step. I not anticipating any surprises, but after, if you approve it the way that it is, then I will go back to Joanne and say, this is what we're looking at. This would be a natural transition over. And then we would want to see, what this type of role would align with other districts and things like that. So we've tried to make it be as a collaborative process the Stillnet District business office needs.
Great, anything else? Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite our superintendent to the lecture.
So I was gonna start the evening off that our school years went well. I've had a little bit of experience from a 16-year-old's perspective on going into their junior year. And now that he had 2 hamsters and he's a 16-year-old, he's in high school, I need somebody to start babysitting them or I'm just gonna leave them. I need help. So for those of you that missed the conversation, we were talking about babysitting hamsters and animals. But no, in seriousness, it's been a great start to the school year. I think the excitement that we've seen from both districts at the beginning of the year has been a very welcome sight. The enthusiasm from our staff from day one, very much appreciate Kevin, Christy, and Al being able to attend and represent you as a board. Kevin gave a very nice welcoming. He referenced his first last, so it was his first last opening day speech to his staff, very heartfelt. It was a good start off for our year for our staff, and it's went extremely well. So as you keep hearing things and talking to community members, please ask, how's it going? Because there has been a lot of transitions. I think all in all, though, our community, our parents have handled it very well. When there's been questions about buses that's come in, we normally have a lot of bus questions this time of year. And I'll knock on wood, right now, we've not had like as many as we've had in the past. So far, we've had roughly, I believe I know of 2 that have come our way. And just from working out some of the things that have with logistics. So it's been a good start in that realm. Typically, Washington, kindergartner is a very tough time. I'd say more so for some parents with dropping off their children. And the transition that this past year has had, it seems like everybody's a lot more comfortable from an adult perspective. And even for our kids, we didn't have as much of the disconnect or the missing of the parents, our guardians from when the parents dropped them off. You've seen that natural excitement for kids wanting to be back around one another again. So it's been a very fun first week of school, really, what's been happening. For us tonight, I want to bring a couple of things too, because I think it's exciting. It's been a process that I think has been very collaborative. I'd like to give a lot of kudos to Christy and Freddie. I know Eric's been part of it, and I know former board member St. Clair's been part of it with our equity policy. But we went through that process now, and we went through the first reading back in June. And we're bringing it back for a second reading is our equity policy. So at this time, opening up the floor, if there's anything that Christy or Freddie you'd like to bring up again, reminding us about our equity policy. And then we would seek for the board to approve that this evening.
I was just gonna say, we didn't make any changes since there were no substantive comments from the last time. So this is the same substantive form, just without all the red lines. This is actually in final form now. That we are bringing to the board for adoption tonight, if we're going to, accept that. We have, I think we explained last time, we put it into 725, sort of fit that number in based on where it fit and where it seemed to fit within the broader spectrum of the rest of the policies, so that it didn't seem like an outlier. And just as a refresher, we did, with the committee's help, we had looked at a number of different resolutions and policies that other districts have adopted and put together. Some of them were very vague, some of them were very detailed, and we initially brought them out as a blind. We didn't put names and we didn't let everyone know like where they came from and who adopted them, and sought feedback from the committee members. And to refresh, the committee members were some staff members, some parents, and board members. And we did, elicit a lot of discussion in the early stages with some of that, and did kind of vote on which one we kind of wanted to use as a framework to start with, not that we had to keep exactly. And we did end up picking the one that District 120, Mundelein High School had initially put together. So this is based on that, but it is not the same policy. It is tweaked to a degree, and we tried to make it fit more what, because some of the needs are a little bit different between the two districts. And we took out some language and we added some more language and wanted to keep, we liked that there was a separation of a commitment by the board, and then, some accountability with the responsibility separated into two sections, one being that the board is going to do certain things, and then the superintendent shall do certain things. We did make a very concerted effort to not change the superintendent's obligations as part of this, because we didn't want to make him have to run through hoops and do one thing for our district and something totally different for the high school. So we did make a concerted effort to keep that aligned so that we weren't making more work for our superintendent. And then we did add we changed a little bit with a lot of help from our staff, who I think were very helpful in the definitions part specifically. And so I definitely commend, we had a smaller working group on that, just as time went on, there wasn't enough opportunity, but we did invite everybody. But I think with the smaller group and with the staff in particular, we were able to flesh out a lot of this. And with their input, that they have a lot more valuable input than maybe some of the board members who don't work with students on a day-to-day basis and have some of the lingo. So that was very helpful. And I think I'm very proud of what we ended up with. And I think, we're all three of us that are sitting here who had worked on it, really, we're proud of this. So we're hoping that we can adopt it and close this committee and move on to other, other things. I will, and I know I mentioned this last month, this one, we did decide to keep this as a racial and ethnic equity, because we do already have a student, I didn't bring my policy book with me, we do already have the educational equity section, which is using the IASB definition. That's already in our policy, so we are not changing that. That is still in place. This is fleshing out a little bit more the racial and ethnic equity. We did discuss, and it did come up, that we may want to consider putting together another committee for the next round and maybe identifying a gender and various, however we want to phrase that, a gender equity policy that would be different. And we didn't want to mesh them together because we didn't think that that was appropriate, that we didn't want to dilute one for the other. They're both very important, but that wasn't the focus of this particular policy. So we're hoping that that will be a to-do list that we can come back and do, because I think that we all can acknowledge that that's an important one as well. That is already addressed in the educational equity policy, but also needs to probably be fleshed out in further detail, much like this one.
Okay.
The copy that we have does have a few strike throughs in it still. I know this.
Okay.
In the responsibility section.
Well, we will obviously fix that.
Yeah, we can clean that up.
Okay.
See?
Thank you. Very quick trying to get it to Anna, because I know we need to get it out, and I couldn't even find it at first, so I had to.
So if the board would take action on it this evening, no, it will be taken with the intent that we would have it cleaned up and the strikeouts would be removed before we'd send it off to School Board Association. Okay, any other comments? Ready, Eric? We're good?
Excited.
I give kudos to our committee and our board. At a time when most school districts were we're still waiting on what to be able to do and getting more direction. You took proactive measures. You saw the need to be able to have a policy in place for our school district. And I think the process that you employed, you include as many stakeholders as you could to be able to get as many perspectives as you can. And that doesn't always happen. I think that's a reflection on who you are as a board, how you want to be inclusive, and making sure we are trying to do the best to meet all of our needs, because that is a challenging job to do. especially when you talk about 1,700 students and trying to make sure how do we best meet all their needs. And I think our policy is very reflective that it demonstrates that we want to do the best for all of our students and making sure all of our students feel seen and heard through the process. So thank you. On a much lighter subject, probably not as fun, but it could be as fun. So one of the items that we do need to do is go through in the board per policy 2125. Board does need to approve the expenses to be able to attend the AAA conference. I think another credit to you is you are wanting to participate in the professional development for yourselves and becoming better as board members. Everybody's attending. So one of the things it is approving an expense. The expense for the group to attend for the conference itself is $6,300. And we do have 2 additional board members who will attend some pre-conferences. So the total would be $6,900, which is almost right in line with what we've done in the previous years as well. So we would ask that you do approve that. So things are set up to be able to be paid and we can be in attendance at that meeting on November. And we do have our room assignments, correct? Okay, and we'll get those out to you. You think we're at the Hyatt again?
Yes.
We'll be at the same place to Hyatt. Okay. The last item that I have for your information and the action that we'd ask is to add a board meeting. One of the things that we learned in going through the process of determining should we be in a shared service model and what to look for when we worked with Lake Forest was you need to have a process in place to keep reminding people the why. Why are you in a shared service? And one of the things they pointed out was in a very short time, there's a lot of turnover usually in a board. And as we look back, I think we saw right now there's 4 board members out of the 14 that had originally participated in the shared service transition. And we're fortunate that Kevin's with us from 75 and from the beginning. Al's with us now. He was with the 120 board at the time. So he's on here helping, so he'll still have a perspective. And then the 120 group is Tom Lamette and Laura Mellon. So that group met 2 or 3 weeks ago. And what we did was go through deciding what would be best and how to best reaffirm what we're doing and the why. So what we're going to look to do at the November meeting is we're going to review the declaration that everybody should have and kind of give any backstory and allow both boards, and this will be a joint meeting. So this will be 75 and 120's board together hearing this, of asking the questions with one another so we can make sure we're still on the same page of what's our purpose again for being in the shared service. What is our role of working together, not only administratively, but from a board perspective? And also from a board perspective, what are the expectations you'd have primarily for looking at what you'd want your superintendent to be able to do through this process? So our board will, the committee will take us through that. In addition to that, the feedback that the shared service committee gave was, we want to do the shared services matrix compensation distribution. So when we first went into shared services, T and Andy worked together to put some indicators. They thought, we'll just use the superintendent's role to say, here's how we think would be the best way to determine the percentages of the superintendent's pay get divvied up between the districts. And we said every 3 to 4 years, we want to review that. Now we're in year 4. So T and Andy are going to go back, they're going to review those metrics and say, are those still appropriate for all the positions we have? And come back to you with that formula again, so you can see that and we'll review those positions. The second part of that is when we originally went into shared services, Kevin can back me up. We thought it was going to be for the superintendent. Well, I think you all know it hasn't went that way. We thought it'd go slower is the point. We didn't think the transition would happen quite as fast. But I mean, quickly, I mean, myself and Jamie and Shane were on year 1. Shane actually started half a year before. Dan Crow was before that. So the point is, we're going to show you where we started year 1 in the number of shared service positions to where we are now. So it gives you an idea of the growth that's happened in a relatively short period of time. And I think one of the things is we've started to look is just kind of foreshadowing, talking to Lake Forest back we did. It took them almost 11 years to see that transition process take place with the number of positions. With the whole goal, it happens naturally, right? We wanted to have positions transition through attrition or retirement. We weren't wanting to force anybody out, which we've held true to that. And they took almost 11 years. And I think right now our trajectory is moving pretty fast on that, which can determine however you want, but we're moving. So it's a good thing. And I think it'll be good for us to see. The second or the third item that I had coming back, and this is something both boards have brought up, is about the evaluation for the superintendent. So when the committee met, they thought there's some different ideas we could do and what we could do to modify the superintendent's evaluation. So one of the things we'll do is bring some suggestions back to both boards and say, here's some information that I found. What I've done to help start preparing for that is I reached out to the superintendents that we work with. So I reached out with Hawthorne, Diamond Lake, Fremont, and I reached out to Lake Forest. And then also talked to a couple of other high school superintendents, see what they did that might be a little bit different. What I found out is most districts are kind of in the same boat. In the sense that they all think the evaluation model is kind of timing wise. They'd like to see something revamped. Most people seem to be using the Illinois State Board form, which is very generic. And people find it can be great because it gives a lot of flexibility, but it also can be unclear because it's so generic. The one thing that I've seen people starting to gravitate towards, it's called Super Eval. And that gives a little bit more flexibility for when you could fill out the eval and you'd have access to it, and for more immediate feedback, whether it's me putting documents in there or for you being able to get feedback on the standards that we're looking for. And the one thing I heard positive feedback wise in regards to that was you can do it midterm and it can be a shorter process, just as a quick check-in. Because the one thing that I've heard from Shared Service Committee, I think both boards and even talking to other superintendents, I think one of the things as a superintendent's perspective, we struggle with the evaluation timeline is challenged. Because the boards need to go back to the prior April technically and then work through. And then you're trying to say how the year ended and it's May, we still don't usually have all of our student data until the school year's finished. So I think there's flexibility in there when you start looking at using some different tools, but we'll be bringing that to you, some options for the boards to consider with what we want to be able to have. And I had asked to work with the Shared Service Committee to say, what would be maybe a starting point if we wanted to do any kind of modification to the evaluation tool. So we at least have a starting point for both boards. So we'd like to do that meeting or have that meeting on November 8th. Please note that is an election day and those are the days schools closed for non-public education employees. That's not a big deal, but just being aware of that. But we still felt that was a good time. Seemed like most people were available to meet on that day and time. So tonight we had asked the board to approve a special board meeting for the November 8th to have a joint shared services committee update. And that would be the only topic for that evening. Did I miss anything, Kevin? Okay. All right, that's all for my report. All right, board businesses.
Okay, next on the agenda is the committee updates. The first one is the board policy. We're going to look at section 4 tonight.
And so section 4, we were kind of deferring off to Freddie, I think, because of the finance piece to that.
Yes. So we have like 4 more sections to go, which we're gonna finish next week, but as we're going through it, it took us 3 meetings, I think, to go through what we've gone through. The first meeting was back in March. Yes, March 21st to be exact. And I had a bunch of questions kind of leading into it. It was T and I's and Ray, I think, was there as well, first time doing it. They're doing the whole policy review. After that meeting, me and T talked and we thought it was better for her to kind of prepare a cheat sheet. I call it cheat sheet, Cliff Notes version of these policies, because similar, I guess similar to the rest of the policies, there's a lot of like school specific language in here that I wasn't the most familiar with, and obviously T is. So she put this together for us, it's not just me, so we can go through it. All of the questions that I had, like as we went through it, and Ray, I guess I'm speaking for Ray as well, because he was there for 2 of the meetings. So all of the questions we had were being answered. You know, if we were doing specific items that the policy was referring to, the way our bonds are being managed, I mean, all of these, you know, specific items, And we did also notice that a lot of these were adopted in March of 2020, which is right when I came out in April of 2020. So I don't know how we want to go, because we've only done this, I think, we only did this once on the time, and we reviewed a whole section. Did anybody have any questions, or do I go through my questions that I had and were answered? Do you want me to read T's, Cliff Notes? I mean, I can share this. I just, you guys tell me how we want to go through it, what's most efficient. Because I don't know if anybody else went through it. Obviously, we did, again, minus the last 4 sections, which we're gonna do next week. So did anybody have anything in particular? I can look
Do
and
you
see.
want to just give us the highlights of each, things that
Yeah.
you want us to, since you did spend 3 we don't want to spend 3 meetings worth of time
For
going
sure.
through this.
That's why I asked, and I
Yeah,
can just,
but I mean, if you, since she already digested it for you, and if
Mhm.
that was easier for you to understand, I guess, tell us what you think, and even if it's just, hey, you should go through and read this in great detail to understand this, and that's good feedback, but
yeah,
I don't know that we need to.
perfect. So I'll go through some highlights, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I'll still share this after the fact. I'll send it out to the group. I think it's helpful to have. Because again, I'm still learning school finance every single time I meet with T and the group. So I think first and foremost, the most important thing that is important to understand is there was language throughout was a little bit inconsistent with referring to chief investment officer or chief financial officer, the superintendent at times. So like one of the things that T pointed out in her Cliff's Notes version is anytime it said superintendent designee, she would put CFO. The only exception to her not being referred to as a CFO or that being the superintendent's designee is under specifically, and we'll get to it, is the policy around bonds, revenues and investments. There it does refer to her specifically as our chief investment officer, because she does manage that entire process. So board policy, the first one that I would jump to is 4-20, which is the fund balances. I just thought this was neat. Again, something new that I learned. So our board policy defines the district's desired fund balance to be 15 to 20%. In that meeting, T said that we were well above that and we were in good standing. So she did get that exact number. So for FY21, we were at 31%. So well above what our own policy is expecting us to be at. So that was good to know. As we move through it, the 4-32 developer impact fees. This was completely foreign to me. I guess the only thing to mention here, the district has entered into one impact fee agreement in the last 6 years, so it's not something extremely common, but it is there.
And that's usually for when, like, new
When there's-
development is
right, there's new-
happening. and
Yeah, correct,
Impact on the community, but because we're pretty well built out now.
correct. Right,
lot
so, yep, so she put on here, they're considered contributions to the district for the purpose of accommodating a change in educational needs such as acquisition of property, construction of additional physical space, adding or leasing temporary space, and altering and repairing existing space. So that's the condensed version of that. A couple of just check the box items that I guess because I'm a little more familiar with some of these items. So like the use of credit cards and procurement, like P cards, all that is like everything that's in that policy 4-55 that is being done. There's a laundry list there of items that the district should be doing to obviously make sure we're managing the cards correctly, who has a balance, making sure that that's all being done correctly. So that was good to hear and see that we don't have 75 cards laying around throughout the district. Actually, I believe there's only 22, if I'm not mistaken. So that's, yes,
Can I
absolutely.
check the one item? So if, for a second, just so you're aware, on board policy 432 development impact fees.
Oh.
One of the things the village has informed us is it looks like they've approved an impact fee schedule. That differs from what our impact fee amount is. and theirs is lower. And I've looked into it, and the village has the right to set the impact fees. So I will be in contact with the village to see what we can do to make, see if there's any kind of modifications or happy medium that we can do with that. Because the example I give you is they had just negotiated with the development that could be coming, that's coming in, forget the number of units now. But there's a difference of around $100,000 between what we would have received if the village didn't have predetermined impact fees.
So don't we need to then, if they get to set it and there's nothing we can do to modify it, we need to at least adjust our policies to be in line.
That'll be the minimum.
Yeah.
I didn't see that 432 has any specific amount though.
It doesn't have an amount, but it talks about the builder setting the agreement with us.
Right,
And right now,
the villages.
it looks like the village is wanting to be the negotiator. So that's a recent development with them approving and stuff, so it's. We just gotta bring that back to your committee.
Did we find that out after the fact?
Kind of. What I share is in the meetings that I've had with village representation, they talked about having that developed, looking at it. They actually started last year. Part of the reason was some of the school districts or other public entities, it was tougher to negotiate impact fees because there was no consistency. With school districts, there's the Naperville formula that's usually used, and it's pretty much accepted by developers because they're used to it. 75 and 120 use the Naperville formula for determining that. So the village took steps to try to equalize that. The part that we need to follow up on is the collaboration of the school districts of giving input on what the fee amount they set, if that was an appropriate amount. That didn't happen.
And I suppose from a policy perspective, the reason why we would want to make sure that we're doing that is because otherwise, from a village perspective, I guess they feel like they look better by saying, oh, look, we kept the impact fees low, but then it's gonna fall on us to then be looking to our taxpayers to then pay more because it's gotta come from somewhere.
Somewhere.
Right.
Yes. That's it. Sorry.
Cool.
thank you.
No, you're fine. 460 purchases and contracts that similar to the meetings we've had, our regular board meetings, T is following our policy and making sure that we're bidding anything over 50,000 out. Unless it's your specific exemption. So that was okay. Accounts and audits, we get the treasurer's report. Obviously, we have a finance committee. I think that's one of the big items that we've kind of changed to in the last like 12 months with some of the turnover on our board is making sure that we're asking more questions and making sure we understand what we're doing with all of the funds. So I think that's been a positive change. Transportation, which recently came up. We actually talked about that at length, so we are following that, and that has there was no issue there. 4140, which is the waiver of student fees. I did have a special note on that.
I'll reply just to make sure so everybody's aware. If people ask about our transportation and the distance in which we pick up our students, the state law requires you to be at 1.5 miles or further. Our board has chose many before I was here to say we were going to put that radius at 1.2. So our board is select saying we're going to pick up more kids closer to our schools. So if there's questions about that, I mean, that's one thing that's not usual. I think that's a kudos for our board. So if people ask about that, it's good for you to know.
Can I also add just to that educational point, because that's come up a few times in the last, especially right as I was starting. It's 1.2, but there's also some additional pieces that do follow by state law. Like if you're on the other side of a busy street, even if you're closer to 1.2, we still have to do it. So it's not it's not just 1.5 by state law, it's, and then there's also had like railroad tracks or busy streets and things like that. So there are some exceptions that might be closer, but there's reasons for that. And sometimes people don't understand because if they're only looking at the radius, then that's a little different. So I know that that came up. And especially when we were switching bus contracts and trying to figure that out, and then sharing the bus services with the high schools, since that came up in order to try to keep the cost down, so.
It wasn't 4140, it was 4130. So one of the items that I found interesting, that is in the policy, and T and I discussed it, and she put on here. But she said it doesn't happen often, which is kind of surprising, but it says a family may appeal the district's decision to deny an application for free and reduced food prices. So that's not something that we have faced much here in this district, which, I guess that's a good thing, but, so that's all I had from my notes. Again, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, actually 5, sorry. 5 policies we're gonna review next week.
Since we're discussing,
Yes.
just looking at the food 4120, the food services.
Okay.
So, because I know this came up again, right as I was starting, and so I didn't really know what to ask or what to figure out. I know that the last paragraph says all revenue from the sale of any food or beverage sold in competition with the school breakfast program or national lunch program to students in food service areas during the meal period shall accrue to the nonprofit school lunch program account. But I know Dave tonight referenced that we were able to pay for, is that because as long as we were keeping it within the lunch program, and that it's not a revenue and a profit, it's we're using it to enhance the services in order to keep providing the food to the kids
Yes.
in that regard. So it's not as though we're making money and somehow pocketing it. We're making money, but to continue to supply good, nutritious food for the client.
Those monies can be reinvested back into the food services.
And that's still maintaining the nonprofit status, because when it comes up that we raise the price or we do this, which I know the last couple of years we haven't even charged, so I know that's been a new thing. Newer thing for some families and reminders for others who haven't had to do it for a while. The pieces, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and
That came up
and
tonight.
and that's a good point. Like, so I guess once you see like T's cheat sheet, it'll see how helpful it was for us as the committee. So this is what it says the district maintains Fund 11, a subset of Fund 10, for all revenue and expenditures related to the food service program. This is done to ensure that all food service activities reported separately so as to provide clear documentation in the case of an NSLP audit that all revenue is used to support the production of reimbursable school meals, and that's a subsidized sale of non-program foods. Bless you. So it just goes hand in hand with.
And I recall, and she's not here, right? So, I know that it comes up approximately annually, but I guess the last couple of years we haven't done it because there hasn't been a charge for food. But I know that there's also state laws that govern that we have to match, and we have to, so when it comes before us sometimes to set the lunch price, we are obligated by state law, and I know T educates us on that when it comes up to meet certain things that tie to the federal system. And so when that goes up a little, we have to do it. And I know there's been some pushback by some previous board members and some community members who don't understand, if we're making money and doing this, why are we raising, and should we be subsidizing that from somewhere else? But it's because it is tied to that. And that we have to keep in line with that, but that, yes, there still is some revenue adjusted, but as long as, or accrued, but then we have to turn around and use that then for appropriate needs, but as. Okay, just wanted to tie that all together since it did come up tonight too, and just making sure that we're keeping with that, and that I know it's come up in to the parents, we keep getting reminded appropriately so that for the first time in a couple years, we are now charging lunches again and breakfast. Unless you qualify for the free and reduced, which you can apply for and do. And so that's something that hasn't come up in the last couple of years, so we haven't had a chance to really look at this policy or utilize it much. But it's, kind of a good reminder.
So when I go back to the committee next week, I think it is already. So what is our process for making changes, right? So like specifically the T's highlighted some like I mentioned at the beginning, title changes, like keeping consistent language with referring to titles. Do I bring that to the next board meeting and say this is what we're recommending specifically, like
If
this,
you,
this word in this section?
yeah, if
Okay.
you have, however, it's easier for you to do it. If it's to take,
Or can I, after next meeting, can I just send something to, because you're
Uh-huh.
press, right? You do all the press stuff.
right,
you
so
and Anna,
when,
so-
when we adopt press,
Uh-huh.
we can make changes.
Okay.
And do that, and so that's the time where we say adopt it as that, or make additional changes and change this word and do this.
Okay.
So that probably, I think that's the natural time for us to make changes.
So when is this section, do we know when the section comes up again?
Off the top of my head right now, I do not know.
So do we, or so we're
But-
just keeping notes then, and then when it comes up again, that's when we,
Yes, so I would say to, once you finish the section and you have that. Whether you want to print it out and strike through it and do it that way,
Yeah.
that might be a way to do it so that we can take a look at that and make sure that we're. Following up on it.
Cool.
So that the next time we get, yeah,
I thought we were keeping a Google Doc. Where all these,
I think we are.
that's where we go, so when it does come up, we can review it,
Uh-huh.
and then we can, that check and balance there. I'll find the link and. send
No,
it.
and I know that, but I didn't know if we, I didn't know how it was best for him to do this, so that's why I didn't know if he wanted to spend the time putting it all in, or if he wanted to just pass the notes along and then we can put it together, however. But that's
I
fine,
can
yes,
do
if
either
you
or.
wanna send him the Google link, that helps,
Yeah, that's good. Yes, I'll resend them.
that's
we
what,
probably need to update.
that works. And then for next board meeting, if you could just put out, I think this on there one more time, just to close out section 4, because when we do this last 5 sections, that was great.
So it's the last 5 sections you need to do,
Yes,
cause if it's just those 5, maybe we can just add that to the supplement, cause so we can keep going.
Okay. Yeah.
Through it.
oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, because it'll be quick, I mean,
Uh-huh.
I know a couple of them are kind of
Mhm.
in depth, but yeah.
Thank you.
Finance advisory, I'm next thing.
Sorry,
I said the committee updates finance advisory is next, so I said I gotta go again.
Yeah.
Um. Kevin, do we want to talk about our last finance meeting? Or was that kind of like? After this meeting, because we're obviously we're gonna go over it again.
So bringing up, talking about at least what was the topic, I mean, because the next meeting is gonna start going over it more, so I think giving people kind of an idea of what was discussed is a good lead in.
Okay, so we had Eric Anderson, from. He's like our bond guy, I guess is the easiest way to. I told Kevin, not many meetings I've been to in the last probably 15 years where my head was spinning when I got out, but that was definitely one of them. It was very. He did a great job of explaining it. What number meeting was that, Kevin, for him? He had said it was like his. I don't know,
Yeah.
2000th meeting or something, I don't know, something crazy.
Going through those.
Yeah, he had done that meeting hundreds if not thousands of times. So he just gave us a 30,000-foot view of what it would look like for the district to fund a new addition to Sandwood. So unfortunately, we're missing 2 committee members, Ray being one of them. So still did the 30,000-foot view. We're following up with another meeting next week in hopes that we can have the whole committee there and we're gonna dive a little bit deeper and basically put together 3 or 4 realistic scenarios of how this could be funded. And start basically putting a plan together on bringing it to the board and seeing what that would look like for funding this big project. It is a big undertaking, but it's actually very cool to see. Eric put some scenarios already together, again, from a very broad perspective. T was great, so I'm still learning. I've done some research after that, just to kind of find out exactly what we're kind of diving into. But it was very unique and it's a huge learning opportunity for me, to bring it back to you all. But yeah, he put together a bunch of charts and graphs on what, what our bonds look like, what that process is gonna be like, so again, that's just a very broad, I don't know if you want to add anything, but
Sure could, like, So Kevin, you may have heard about it before. So what the group was talking about is we went through the process of looking at capacity needs and just facilities down in the future. One of the things that we noticed, and Andy Henderson, predecessor for me, he shared with me also, Carl Sandburg Middle School is one of the only middle schools in all Lake County that does not have a stage. And when you start looking at what we offer for our fine arts, and we know that it feeds up to the high school, and that is also a very successful program. We keep coming back to what can we do to keep supporting our fine and applied arts and start trying to plan for that. And when we looked at that, we said, okay, if we wanted to try to do a stage, the idea was trying to put something at Sandburg so they could have their own stage. There's certainly a place that's viable that will work with having it at Lincoln, but we felt if we need to at least entertain the idea of what it would mean to have that space within its own middle school, what that could mean curricularly, not only during the school day, but after the school day, and maybe even further development of the program overall and having more students participate in the programming. But first, we need, knowing that benefit is there, and it could happen, want to be able to see, like Freddie was describing, the options. I think one of the things our committee is being very conscientious of are our taxpayers. And making sure if we did this, making sure that we as a school district are putting our best foot forward and trying to maintain tax rates for our community, while still being able to look futuristically, what would this mean for the benefit of our students? So that meeting was really that first blush of going through, here's the different pools that we could try to work through. One of the reasons we are looking at it now, we have some of our bonds that are going to be fully paid off. So that will give us some flexibility with what we could use those dollars for, and saying, if we could use those dollars, where we'd want to use them and how they could be used. So the whole idea is finance committee at least run through some logistics. We would have some rough sketches provided for the board at the September meeting and say, here's what we're talking about. And seeing where we are, if we think it's viable. If it's viable, okay, we can maybe look to do a little bit more investigating. And then be able to lay out what would a potential timeline be. But really, it's let them do the homework, bring it to the board. Here's what we're thinking, talking about, get more input from you. Certainly tonight, if anybody's watching, we might get more feedback that way. But then we would start going out more, depending on what we had as discussion or you did at that September meeting about that space. And you go from there. So it's exploratory right now. And it's exciting. I think people are interested in it. And just the beginning stages.
Can I speak to the other board members just as a parent of students in the middle school program? Just to, I don't know how many of you have been to any of the musicals that our middle school does. They do, Mrs. Gupta and her team do an amazing job putting on, I call it a mini Broadway show, because, you know, any of my friends, even from out of district who come and see them, are shocked, you know, about the time commitment, the professionalism that goes into it from top to bottom. And I have DVDs I'm happy to share, professional, because they have professional DVDs done of all of that to share if anyone has missed any in the past and would be curious to see what our district, you know, has been capable of doing over the last 5 years when they've brought this back and done that. And it's, you know, it's a great thing, and you're not gonna be able to see it till next year. So by the time we're talking about this in September, so I'm just, you know, throwing it out there. If you haven't been a part of any of these, they are phenomenal. And I know that the high school production comes down and watches all of them so they can see what kids are coming up and are aware of that, and they hit the ground running when they get up to the high school. So that's a benefit and part of why I know that they put it back into you know, into the district. But I know that there are some parents that are pushing to have like a choir could be curricular, but we don't have that. It's an extracurricular activity and stuff. So there are some, you know, other pieces that could come with it, but obviously having to look at all those things. But it is a big, given that they start working in October and they usually put it on in February, even January, February timeframe. It's almost every day after school and throughout the break, and all those kids then from Sandburg have to independently be transported. They used to have buses, but obviously last couple of years, they haven't been able to do that. So that's a big undertaking, and that excludes a lot of people from being able to participate if their families can't get them and transport them. They've tried to use, obviously, some kids to bring them up from the MG and from the other schools to fulfill some of the roles in the plays. but transportation is a real big issue. So if we're able to, and I don't know any of the things you're talking about that we'll all look at, pulling it back to the school would allow a lot more inclusivity for the people who are there to be able to do it, because then they don't have to leave to get over to Washington to Lincoln, because it's not just a quick walk. from the-
Good things. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's it.
you said you're meeting next week?
Next week, yes.
Next one is shared services, but Kevin pretty much said everything that I was going to say. The only thing I'll add is that the committee is meeting next month, and then we're also meeting in October to flush out and go over some of the things that Kevin was talking about before in preparation for our meeting on November 8th. By the way, it's not on our agenda, but that meeting on November 8th is at 6:30. And it will be here, right?
Good catch. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows. And then we should be done and be able to go and see the election returns after that vote. So. Next one is school board and the code of conduct.
On our second code here. Thought I would read through the official language and then just give an update on. The school boarding book as well, because he does such a nice job of kind of elaborating on it. So I'll just go ahead and read the second code here. Code number 2 says, I will avoid any conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety which could result from my position. I will not use my board membership for personal gain or publicity. And then in our school boarding book, he elaborates just a little bit. Said, what does this mean? Telling a coach you can help him or her if she or he reciprocates a favor, steering the board into hiring the dairy that purchases your milk from your farm, buying gas from your brother's station, pushing to hire a relative because he or she is a relative. These types of conflicts of interest must be avoided. For me, this was just a nice reminder of, why we are here. I know that each one of us probably has our own personal and individual reasons for why we want to be a benefactor to the district and help the district, but just a nice reminder that, the beneficiary of all of this is always the students and the education that, we're trying to provide. So that's what I took away from it, just a reminder that, everything we do here is for the students and for education. Not for us, but, regardless of what our own individual reasons are.
Sort of, I was thinking it's sort of backed up by that statement of economic interest we have to fill out every year. Making sure you're keeping honest. Yeah.
We talked a little bit just about, that appearance too, and it's just a nice reminder that, every time we're out in the community, we represent the board and the education that we're providing to our students, so. Even when you're out grocery shopping, having those little conversations with people, so it's, put the students in learning first.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or anything to add? Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the representative updates. Steam Foundation, you have anything?
I know that the week before, well, I guess we start out by saying, those of you that did not have the pleasure of going to see the multimedia center at Sandburg when we went and did that, you guys missed being ambushed by being told as we arrived, here's what you're gonna do on camera, and we're gonna video you doing this whole thing. I would have dressed differently and actually brought my glasses had I known I was gonna be reading off of a teleprompter, but that's fine.
I guess a double whammy to do it in Spanish, by the way.
Go.
Yes.
Oh, it was videoed, and apparently it's going to be put together into something that all the kids are gonna see at some point, but who knows?
You guys did great though.
No, it was good, and it was really nice to see that center, and I know the week before we were there, they had done a presentation of the plaque to, that's there to the Granger and Medline, I don't know which one was which, but, and so that, and I know part of that was written up in the Daily Herald and was doing that, so that's a very, it's a very proud thing that the Steam Foundation really helped try to put together, and that Nikki Irish has put that together for and seeking the grants, and she's still trying to get some more grants to see if we can get a little bit more going on there, so she's working really hard with that. we are gearing up for this year to, as the board of the STEAM Foundation to do. We're always looking for more volunteers and helpers. So if you know anyone that wants something to do in the community, we're happy to take more board members on. But they're gonna have a table at Bratfest and they always put together little kits for kids to put these blinky light necklace things that they'll put together, and it's always a fun thing. So they're gonna be there again doing that. And we've got a number of fundraisers coming up throughout the year because we're trying to get back into fundraising, not just fun spending mode. And so there'll be flyers for that. There's gonna be some information. They're gonna bring back the night of the races. Trying to do that. I'm trying to find a place to really do it. I know there's a timeline, which I can look up the date in a little bit. And when that's going to be, I want to say it's October. And so they're going to be advertising that and doing that and just trying to increase that. They were very happy with the STEAM camps, how those went this summer, being able to work on those again. And we're able to give out some scholarships and that, you know, everyone was very happy with it. So we're just trying to increase the awareness of the foundation and, you know, seeking people's participation. I know that we have, as a district, we have a position posted for the
Saturday Steamers.
yeah, but I don't know the title of the position, but that we've got posted in order to hopefully be able to run that again, because we haven't been able to do that as a district for a couple of years or as a STEAM Foundation. Because that usually runs in January, February timeframe. On Saturdays when a lot of the activities are sort of shut down for the winter anyway. And I know, you know, my kids have always really enjoyed getting to do that. And there's always a million different activities to choose from in electives. And they do that from the younger ages all the way up through middle school. So hopefully we'll be able to do that again. That's the hope. Looking forward to that. And all the stuff that goes with it this year.
And so say those two words I'm always longing to hear, pizza throwdown.
I think they are looking for that, and I think they decided to switch because. Try to see what the date, let me look at my notes on my thing and maybe come back to me, but I do know that they're trying to do that. I know that I think in the past they had sort of switched, they used to do the pizza throwdown in the fall and they used to do the STEAM Foundation in the spring, and I think that they switch those, and so I don't have the date of that one put down, but I think they are going to try to do that again.
Very good.
Yeah. And I will look at my notes to see if I can.
Okay, CEDAW,
Okay, at the June board meeting, there was a draft budget for FY 23 presented. Tomorrow is the next board meeting with the public hearing, and we'll vote on the budget here. They always give us gross tuition for our services based on our average daily enrollment. And for fiscal year 23, that is budgeted at around 534,000, a slight increase from last year. That's, you know, kind of expected, and it's based on the same average daily enrollment as last year. They continue to have staffing issues, which is, you know, kind of typical at the moment right now. It has resulted in students being put on wait lists to get into programming, but as far as I understand, none of those wait lists are impacting any of the services that we get from CEDAW.
okay, thank you. Ray is on here, so I'll skip community outreach liaison, and then the equity committee did a big thing already, so I think that's all it.
I can just update. So April is when they're looking to do pizza throwdown.
Okay,
November 4th is the night of the races.
Great.
I'll come back and remind everybody, that,
yes,
especially you, Kevin, with Diane, at the pizza throwdown.
thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We're gonna look at the July 26th regular board meetings, the approval of the personnel report, bill list, annual renewal list, and FOIA request, and the treasurer's report. So I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented tonight.
Second.
Second by Freddie. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Holly.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Delisier.
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
And Hitzkin was our.
Okay, next is board action items, and Christie, just so you know, I'm going to take these a little out of order.
Okay.
The first one we're going to do tonight is the equity policy, so B, second and final reading. So I move that the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to to approve the second and final reading for the new acquisition. For the new equity policy as presented. Second by Mr. Billetier. Before we call the roll, I just want to take a moment and thank the people that were part of the committee. If I leave some names off, I apologize, but I tried to look back at minutes and I talked to Christie before the meeting, trying to get everyone's name. So from the community, Jason Adelson and Jerry Adelson, and then Mario Sanchez Roca, Jessica Flores, Carly Spina, Joanne Ford Halverson, and Ana Lucia Carrillo. And then the District 75, the District Equity Leadership Team, Jen Vincent and Gabrielle Devlin. And then most of the board members were part of this: Christy Fingerhut, Fergie Gallegos, Eric Biltier, Ray Rose, Al Hitzke. And then I just want to highlight board member who's no longer with us. But Lisa St. Clair was really big in getting this really going, getting the equity committee going and really behind this. So I actually invited her to come tonight, but she couldn't make it. So I just wanted to say thank you to all the people that are read, and especially to Lisa for her leadership and really pushing us to go ahead and do this policy. So thank you to everyone who was part of it. And so will the secretary please call the roll?
Carl.
Aye.
Billetier.
Aye.
Carl.
Hi.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. And Rose are out.
Motion passes. Okay, next up is the job description update. I move that the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the business office clerk job description as presented.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Holly.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Gallegos.
Aye.
Carl. Aye. Billetier.
Aye.
It's and Rose are out.
Next up is the estimated expense approval for the 2022 IASB Joint Annual Conference. I move that the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the estimated total cost for 7 board members to attend the 2022 annual conference and 2 board members to attend the pre-conference sessions for approximately $6,900, excluding mileage expense. Second by Mr. Gallegos. Secretary, please call the roll.
Holly.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Carl.
Hi.
Billetier.
Aye.
It's and Rose are out.
And the last motion for tonight, I move that the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve a special board meeting on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. here in the East District office to review the purpose of our shared services.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Holly.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Carl.
Hi.
Billetier.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Okay, the Board of Education will now adjourn and enter into executive session at 8:19 p.m. for the appointment, employment compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body. And the second item is the discussion of minutes lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act. May I have a second?
I didn't hear you move, sorry. Holly.
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Billetier.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye.
8:19. There we go.
Okay, we were back in session. Will the secretary please call the roll to see if anyone has left?
Holly.
Here.
Rose is absent. Carl.
Here.
Hitzke. Absent. Gallegos.
Here.
Fingerhut. Here. Billetier.
I move the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve. I read the wrong thing. That we approve the executive session minutes from July 26, 2022.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Holly.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Carl.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
And Billetier.
Aye.
Hitzke and Rose are absent.
Okay, President's prerogative. Is there anything that you would like to see on a future agenda?
I would be curious to know where we ended up at once school year kind of settles down and gets started, where we ended up with class sizes at the different levels, now that we're back to COVID norms as opposed to the COVID ones we've had for a couple years. I'm just curious how that ended up.
Yep.
This isn't an agenda item. This is more of just there are rumblings among the staff, so it's, or not staff, parents, so just wanted to bring it up, and I know there's been a lot of issues with the whole school lunch system. And I know we got emails about how it was down and then it's back up.
Yes.
The RevTrak system is very hard to navigate as a parent, and I can walk you through and show you how. I can't find anywhere on how to figure out where my balance is, and this was, I thought I knew how. And a lot of parents were having this frustration and expressing it in various Facebook groups. I thought I knew how and was trying to tell people how to do it. And then I reached out to Patty to correct something that I thought I had previously corrected, and then I confirmed in an old email that I had. She emailed me back and said, on my system, it is corrected, it is saying this. Well, when I log in, it's still saying something else, which is confirming what a lot of the parents are saying. It's possible it's all user error, but maybe we need a tutorial on how to navigate, because a lot of our parents haven't had to navigate the system ever, or haven't done it for a couple of years. And it's different than what the high school uses, so because they use My School Bucks, which we used to use, but now we've used RevTrak for a few years. So like I said, I thought I had it worked out. Apparently I don't, and so I asked Patty to help me figure out, walk me through, because apparently I don't have it figured out, and so I can't find how to find a balance or a correct balance to match what she's showing. And if I'm having problems, then all the other people who said they were having problems, again, this doesn't need to be on a board agenda. It's more to let you know this is happening, so that even if that might just mean, here's a step-by-step on how to do it.
Got it.
And while we're on the topic, also Washington, I believe you need a student ID to get into it. In Washington, parents have never been given the student ID. So, they're not even aware of how to log into RevTrak. Pretty conscious about checking emails and folders, and I didn't even know RevTrak existed, honestly.
It's a number of clicks into the website. That's a thing to be fixed at some point later,
So you need an ID to get in.
to register for it, if you've never been a part of it, or I was already a part of it because I had kids from before. I don't remember how I first got a part of it, but that's indicative of, there are a number of K-2 parents who probably never had to use it.
And I'm still under the impression that lunch is free at Washington, because that's what we heard last from Principal Drake. So my kids have been eating every day, but I've never sent in money.
So there's two things. No, we're gonna need to, students will end up paying, if they're not on a program. The software for our food management system wasn't up and running. I know at least, well, it was no, because it was Friday, so it was last week, and then probably I think these 2 days this week, so it should be running as of today. So we were gonna get some kind of communication out saying it was gonna be started,
Okay.
but we need to clarify that.
Well, they did send out communication to families saying it was down Friday, but now it's all back and up and running. They did send out that communication to families, which is what spurred a lot of families going, I'm trying to check my balance and I can't find it. And like I said, when I logged in even an hour before the meeting, after I got Patty's email back, what I'm seeing in my RevTrak is different than what she's reporting she's seeing. Because I had a kid graduate, and so I had asked a year ago, in a month, put that down to the other kid. When I log in, it's still showing up on my third kid. And she goes, oh no, and my system is showing up to this way. Well, that's not what, when I click this, that's not, so. It's not very user friendly to figure out like, where's my balance? And that's what families are trying to, I don't know if I have a pre-COVID balance. I don't know if I need to add money. And again, that's not the where to and hows that you need to report back to us. This is just more, you report,
Yeah.
making you aware so that somebody can maybe build a how-to and a tutorial to send it out, because
Video to get to-
there are lots of people, and myself included, having trouble figuring it out.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to have, somebody will call you tomorrow,
fine.
I'm trying to make sure we understand exactly.
I don't mind even coming down and show, because I don't know how you guys log in. It might look different as a parent logging in.
Right.
I can log into you right now and show it to you if you want to, but if you don't want to be the one doing it, that's totally fine. I can talk to somebody tomorrow, that's fine. However you want it.
So I'm looking at, my thought is we'll get Jennifer, our webmaster, to do a video. To go click by click for people, so she would probably need to be able to see it, but I need somebody there that understands RevTrak inside and out. And then they may
Yeah, no, and that's fine, and that's fine.
I'm comfortable with that.
And I'm curious
And-
about the student ID.
And yeah, and it might start as early as registering for RevTrak if you've never used it before, and that's something I would have known about. Because I'm a third grader, so I've been in it a little while.
Yep.
And I couldn't tell you how I got started.
Okay, I'll look, so yeah, we'll follow up on that. No, well, I was gonna ask, you asked about the class size numbers. So, at the end of this week, we look to get our 6-day enrollment numbers also. Would it be okay, like a Friday update, if I put our enrollment numbers and then I could break it down by class sizes for what we're seeing?
Yeah.
For average, like a min and a max.
And I know it's probably different at the different schools too, because that had been a topic of discussion in many different venues. So I'm just curious where it ended up, since we try to predict it, but we can't,
Yep, so how close we got?
just to know how far off, because I know we were clear on not making hard limits, but
That'll be good for people to know.
just to see where we're at.
Yes.
And then, do you think that Stephanie could send something out just saying that lunch is indeed not free at Washington anymore? Because I mean, I can show you the email that said, for the time being, until you hear from me, lunch is free. And we never directly heard from her. We heard from the district, but I know there's Facebook threads where teachers are, some of them are under the impression that lunch is still free at Washington, so when the parents are calling in, that's the information they're getting, and others are getting conflicting information.
So you got a message from the principal saying it's free,
An
and a
email.
message from the district saying it.
Well, I don't know that,
The district email came out, I want to say it was Friday night, saying
Yeah.
we had a problem yesterday and today, and because today was a problem, it was free for everybody. But it's now been resolved, it's up and running, and it'll be good back next week. That's what that said.
Okay.
But I did, obviously you would, as a Washington parent, would hear from Stephanie, or we didn't otherwise hear, so I don't.
yeah, we have an email.
But yeah, we do need to get it cleared up regardless of what went out, so here's what it is.
There's a lot.
So are we back to pre-COVID lunch policy? Is that the deal?
Yes,
It was- yeah, it was confusing. And I think what they were just saying about the Washington thing, that just confused everybody even more. You know,
Well, and the fact that we, 2/3 of Washington families have never had to deal with lunch ever.
Right.
All 3 years,
all,
all 3 years, never mind, all of Washington's.
right, this will be the second graders' first year paying for lunch.
Yeah, so the entire school of Washington has never had to deal with, which is part of why everyone's super confused, because they don't even know how to fund an account, now that they have to pay one, and how to do that and whatever, and even the parents that have been using it can't get in to find out, do I still have a balance, when did I?
It was,
So it's causing lots of problems.
no, it was a text. That's what it was. Good morning, lunch at Washington is temporarily free for all students who choose to have a school lunch.
Yeah.
That was on Thursday.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's the last we heard.
That's the last year.
Mhm.
And then the district email went out Friday night,
Yeah, which I wanted.
which it said, it's now been resolved, and for the district, we just did it free on Friday.
Yeah.
And maybe it was an assumption. Stephanie's part that the district superseded, but if parents didn't know
The
that.
parents still want to hear Stephanie saying confirming, yes. Yeah. Not free.
okay, anything else? I sent out an exit slip, so if you would fill that out, that'd be great. I moved to adjourn.
At 9:09. Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.